On everyone. So Scream 6 was the first installment in which we didn't see Neve Campbell reprising her role as Sidney Prescott. And a lot of the Scream fandom kind of had mixed results, right? A lot of people were okay with it. A lot of people were not okay with it. It did feel personally, to me at least, and it kind of seems to be the consensus that they did a good job in Scream 6 of making a film that didn't need or require Sidney Prescott. Scream 5, I felt, didn't really need her. I felt like she didn't really do anything that was required solely on Sidney Prescott outside of shooting through the doors, which is kind of like the Sidney thing to do, right? She's experienced, she understands how this works, she knows Ghostface is probably in the closet, right? Like that was something that was cool. But even the tracker, she said, Gail, I got that from you, that was a Gail Weathers type thing. It just seems like the Scream 5 and the new writers on stuff kind of have tried to force feed the OG3. I mean, even Gail, right, in Scream 6, you didn't really need her. Kirby's return, didn't really need her. What did Kirby do in that movie that, a new character couldn't have done? Even the whole storyline with her was a little off. But, look, we love these characters. We grew up with these characters. Many of us did. And we'd love to see her, right? I don't mind Sidney Prescott. A lot of people have, come after me and said hey, you just don't like Sidney or you don't want Sidney. It's not that. I just think we've reached the point where it's time to move on. And I was like, hey, give me a good Scream movie and I could care less if Sidney's in it, right? I care more about the franchise and the movies and their success and giving me a quality Scream movie because I believe that there's more to Scream than just Sidney Prescott. But if you could bring Sidney back in a believable sense and something that is fitting and true to the story, then fine, right? If you're going to do a full circle moment where everything ties in and it's going to be the end of an era and the end of the Billy arc, then fine, bring Sidney Prescott back. I don't mind that. It would be fitting in that regard. Plus, the last thing we got to see of her was her sitting on an ambulance. Right? I would like a proper send-off. I would love an emotional scene where you get to see her, maybe playing with her kids and Mark Kincaid at the end, and it's it fades to black, and it's oh, there you go. Man, that was what we needed, right? I would love that. And with the upcoming Scream 7, whenever it eventually gets released, there are plenty of rumors going around on all kinds of stuff in regards to Scream 7. We'll start diving into all of it. But one of the big things is that Sidney Prescott is likely to return to Scream 7. And it seems like, the studio has reached out to her. Obviously, they had the dispute for Scream 6. They didn't really want to pay Neve what she felt she was worth. They wanted her in kind of a minor role. It would have been a significant role based on the rumors. We'll never know for sure. But based on the rumors that had came out, hey, she was supposed to set up something more grand. They didn't end up doing that. They told us that they changed parts of the script. So I imagine that whatever it is for Scream 7, they have an idea of what direction they want to go with her character. Hopefully it's fitting. Hopefully it's something that makes sense. You if you're going to write her in a believable sense. I also do think that it's very possible that they have an outline for Sidney and without Sidney. Kind of like what they did with Scream 5, right? They had hey, this is the script and the way we're going to go if Sidney Prescott is in the movie. If not, this is the script and this is the direction we're going to go without her. That's likely the scenario. But Neve Campbell was at a fan convention and a fan expo and was asked about Scream 7 and is she in Scream 7? And what she had to say was this. So she got asked if she will return in Scream 7 and said, I don't know if I can talk about that, right? That is something that is very interesting, right? Because obviously, at least to me, that tells me that they've at least had conversations. They've at least had dialogue. Because usually, when asked of something like that, what is the answer that you usually hear? Oh, there haven't been any conversations yet. We haven't really talked about it yet. Who knows? I'd love to be back for X amount reasons or dollars or whatever. You get the generic answers, right? And look, Neve has said that she's willing to come back. She wants to be paid fair. So we know what it would take for her to return to the franchise. I just think that based on her saying, I don't think I can talk about that, that tells me, one, Scream 7 isn't going to happen. 2, Scream 7 is probably, like, the rumors are probably true. The script is probably ready to go. And 3, they have at least had some back and forth in dialogue with Neve Campbell about returning as Sidney Prescott. Now, we'll see what happens, right? The writer's strike still in effect. It's very possible, the way that it's looking, that the actors may end up going on strike. So if that happens, that could prolong things. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward. But I absolutely do think that they've talked to Neve Campbell. Because again, like, if you hadn't had conversations or you hadn't had any sort of contact whatsoever, that's your answer, right? If I ask you, hey, are you going to be in the upcoming Scream 7? You're going to say, like, I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody, not sure yet. We'll see. Maybe we'll have that conversation at some point, whatever, right? That's not what she said. She said, I don't think we could talk. I don't think I could talk about that right now, right? So if she can't talk about that right now, then that leads me to believe that she's either A, still in conversations, right, and still having dialogue. 2, they haven't officially announced Scream 7. So, I'm sure everything's under wraps, everything's hush-hush. They probably don't make that announcement until everything kind of gets resolved and they kind of have a better understanding of, like, when are they going to be able to start filming this? When is this going to get released? Like, who's on board? Are we going to be able to bring back Radio Silence? Are we going to be able to bring back Jenna Ortega? Are we going to be able to bring back Melissa Barrera? Right? Is Courtney Cox coming back? Like, all of those things, I think they're going to want to kind of have an idea before they get that announcement. But I do think that, like, hey, they've talked to everyone. I do think that, because, look, if they've talked to Neve, then that means they've probably talked to Melissa. They've probably talked to Jenna. They've probably talked to Courtney, right? They've probably had conversations with Radio Silence. They're not just going to say, oh, hey, let's start talking to everybody and then a week later start filming. No, like, this is all a process. This is all being fleshed out. And I think that, Sidney returning for Scream 7 could be a real possibility. And I do think it makes sense. Again, if you can do it in a convincing and believable manner. If she's just there for the sake of being there, what's the point, right? Like, I know to some fans, they don't care. They just want Sidney in the film. They just want Neve Campbell, right? But I don't want her to just kind of be relegated to a side character that just doesn't really fit the plot. It makes no sense outside of, like, she's Sidney Prescott and Ghostface is killing people, right? Like, there's more to her character than that. Like, tell us a story, right? Make a connection. Have her tie into some real manner, right? Like, the only way that we know that they've been able to bring her back so far is killing Dewey, right? Like, can you give us something more than just, like, Gail having to die for her to come back, right? Like, if Scream 7 is very likely, I don't think it's the end of the franchise. There are, like, rumors that have circulated of, like, Scream 7 is going to be the end of the franchise. I don't buy that. I absolutely think it could be the end of, like, the era, right? I absolutely believe Scream 7 could be the end of the Billy saga. And, we get Scream 7 at some point, several years down the line, and Scream 8 ends up being the new beginning, and it's a new story with fresh characters. Or maybe they go the series route rather than the movie route. There's a lot of talks about them potentially doing a series, right? So if they do a series route, okay, fine, maybe they go that route. But, like, I do think Scream 7 could make a lot of sense as, like, the conclusion, right? You full circle, tie everything together, wrap it up in a bow. It's beautiful. Chef kiss. Goodbye, Sidney. Goodbye, everybody. Time for a new era, right? I'm okay with that. But you gotta have her in it in a convincing manner. Don't just put her in it because it's Billy and, you, like, have her make sense with the story. Actually write her into the story, right? Because I can see more for her character than what they've done, right? Like, it seems like they don't really know what to do and what direction to go with the core characters. And Sidney is she's an icon in the Scream franchise. And in many ways, she is Scream in a lot of ways. Like, I get people's sentiments when they're like, she is Scream. She is in many ways. I think Scream is more than just Sidney Prescott, but I do get the idea of like she's the final girl, right? Like we've been blessed to have her in basically every movie outside of Scream 6, or in every movie outside of Scream 6, right? Like all those things I completely get. Most of us grew up with Neve Campbell and Sidney Prescott, right? So like we've had her for the last 27 plus years. So I'm all for seeing her. I just don't need to be force fed Sidney Prescott. I don't need her just in the like, and that's what I felt about Kirby. That's what I felt about Gale. It was like what did Gale do in Scream 7 or Scream 6 that somebody else couldn't have done? Right? Like the only thing she did was discover the shrine, right? But you had Kirby, who was an FBI agent, who could have done that. What did Kirby do that only Kirby could have done? Nothing. You could have had an entirely different FBI. You could have done this movie the exact same way without Gale Weathers and without Kirby, and just had a different detective that you could have had very sus and kind of, maybe threw things off, maybe, and then had them discover the shrine, and then that would have been even suspicious, and we would have been like, wait, like, really, this guy, like, all of those things, right? Like, you didn't need to have them in this movie. And so, I don't want that to be the trend for the Scream franchise going forward, where it's like, yep, the OGs are returning, like, but they're just not going to have a purpose. Like, I don't know. It's just me. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Agree with me? Disagree with me? How do you feel? Do you think, like, yeah, this is confirmation that they've at least had conversation? I do. I really think that that's the case. But however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, let me know down in the comments section below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button, follow the bell notification, stay up to date with all things Scream, join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. See you all in the next one. Thank you.